One of the features I'm particularly pleased about with Brightcel is how easy it is to balance and reconcile the accounts. That was always a problem with regular spreadsheet accounting. It could take you a long time to find the errors and how to put them right. Let's have a look at some errors that have appeared on here. This is the balance sheet. If all is well, the number at the top here, £3,204,526.22, should correspond, that's the amount we've got to distribute, that should correspond with what we've got left. £3,201,276.22, not the same number, there is an imbalance of £3,250. Right. Let's go to the home page. It's telling us that we've got that imbalance. We can see it because we're on the balance sheet, but if we've been working on one of the other pages and putting some entries in, and that balance comes up, and a message comes up that there's an imbalance, then you can decide, do you just ignore it, pressing cancel, or do you have another go, and you can click retry, and then this disappears and you go back to where you left off. So if, for example, you've just put in one entry and it's come up with an imbalance, you're pretty sure then, if that's the first time you've got the message, that that's where your error is. So you might want to press retry, go back and do what you've done before. If, however, you've inherited this from somebody else and you don't know where that error might be, or indeed it was the end of the day and you couldn't be bothered, and when you came back to it a few days later you'd forgotten what it was all about, don't worry, there's another way. So I'm going to click cancel, and I'm now going to go to look at cash balances. Some people will call this nominal ledger. I tend to use the term cash balances because that's more in tune with what I as a lawyer am thinking about. And the computer whirs into action and starts compiling our cash balances. Now you remember we had an imbalance of £3,250, and we have got to try and find out where that is. Well, first thing I would do is look in these columns. Anything that appears here is possibly going to give us a problem. Now, the first thing I can see here is that we've got a duplicate error. What is that, I wonder? So we've got, this is coming out of Blofeld client account. It also appears to be having paid out of an account in the name of Pussy Galore. So we've got double entry. What's the amount of that? 3,250. Well, that's very encouraging because we may well find that that is exactly our imbalance. And if we can sort that, we may find that at least the accounts on the computer are themselves balancing with each, with themselves. They're internally balanced. So let's go and have a look at what the problem is. So we've got this column here, which is a link, and this is a little hyperlink. So if we click on this, it's going to take us to where we put that entry in. There's the 3,250. It's in connection with the property valuation. That reminds me that Pussy Galore did pay for that. Now we've got it recorded out of our client account. Well, if it wasn't actually paid out of our client account and that is just an error, then we can simply delete that. It may be that we did actually pay it out of client account, but what we should then have done is recorded that as a separate entry. It may have been a duplicate in error, but what we can't do is simply say this was the amount that was due, this is the amount that was paid, and it was paid by two people. That doesn't work. It will only, what this is telling us is that it has been, there is one payment out. What it was telling us was that it was paid out of two accounts. We've now corrected that and it's just paid out of the one. So let's go back now, see whether the imbalance has gone. Well, we're getting the home menu up without any rude message, so let's assume that the balance is okay. Let's go back to the cash balances and have a look. And there we are. That imbalance has gone. Our message here has gone, so that's sorted. And you'll also see that we no longer have the 3,250 coming out of the Blofeld client account. Well, that's correct because it shouldn't ever have come out of that. That is where our error was. Let's now have a look at another possible source of error. This, if you've got this right, this list here should correspond exactly with what appears in your client account. And this should be the balance on your client account statement. what sometimes happens is that this doesn't correspond with your client account statement. I say sometimes, that's probably going to be more normally the case unless you've been very, very diligent and good and accurate. But what you'll find is that there will be some entries which you should have put into the accounts which you haven't, and which are now appearing on your client account ledger. Well, if you've got that, so you're missing some numbers here, then you just have to go back and you've got to put them in. That's quite straightforward. What happens though if you're out of balance by a little amount? Well, if we look at this entry here, this is usually very often where errors can occur, little amounts or funny amounts. £319.16, well, that's a typical amount that you might get for some interest, those sort of numbers, and they're always very small numbers or with easy numbers to put in wrong. Let's assume for a moment that it should have been £316.19. So that's to say we're looking at our deposit account statement, and we can see the 2,750,000 coming in. Yes, great, that's very clear and easy. But when we look at the interest that was paid on the 31st of July, it should have been 316.19 and not 319.16. Well, that will be, we want to be able to deal with that as quickly as possible. It's a small error. The way we do that is we use the link again, click on that, takes us straight to the 319.16. That's where we put it in. Let's change that to 316.19, and that should be done. But to check it, let's go back. There it is, 316.19, and let's hope therefore that it's added up correctly as well. 2,750,316.19. You don't need a degree in maths to work that out, and that should now correspond with your office account statement. So it's very easy. One other thing I will show you is here we've got another error trace. This is what I call the error tracing section. It's telling us that we've got a date missing. So let's click on that, and there we are. That's showing us straight to the place where we've paid the Hounslow Wildcats Handball Club. Well, you'd have the date on which you made that from your statement, so you can put that in. Let's say it was the 31st of June. No, there isn't 31st, 30 days in June. 30th of June 2016, and let's see whether that picks that up. It doesn't yet, but if we go and we recompile balance sheets, cash balances, sorry. There we are, it's found at 30th of June and it's put it into date order there. So that should now exactly match what is in your client account statement. That is it. Very easy.